Hi everyone. So now we're going to be talking about how to solve multi-step equations. Multi-step equations just means that there's more than two steps. It's super similar to solving one or two step equations. It's just that there's extra steps. There's a couple of rules that I like to follow when solving multi-step equations. So let me write those down first. So the first rule is we're going to use distributive property to get rid of any parentheses. And we'll see this in a couple of examples too. Once we use distributive property and get rid of all the parentheses, sometimes it's not required to use distributive property, but once you get rid of all the parentheses, the next step is to combine like terms on the same side. And like terms are anything that look alike. So all of the things with x's, or all the things with y's, or all the things without x's or y's. Once we combine like terms on both sides, then we solve like normal. And hopefully by the time we get to that third step, or the solve step, they look familiar enough that it's like, oh yeah, let me just solve this real quick. So let's start going through some examples. The first example is 5x minus 2x plus 3 equals negative 18. Okay, so for this one, there are no parentheses, so we don't have to use that distributive property, but we're going to skip to that second step, which means that we're going to combine like terms. Now, when I look at like terms, I like to underline them a certain way so I know that they're like terms. So for example, like we know that the like terms in this question, are 5x and 2x. The reason why these are like terms is because they both have x's. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to underline both of them with just a squiggly line to make sure that I remember these two things are like terms. Now I'm going to combine them by actually just adding them together. I don't have to switch the sign or anything like that. I just put them together with the signs that they already have. So 5x minus 2x is the same thing as saying 5 minus 2. What's 5 minus 2? Well, it's 3. But because my 5 and 2 have x's on it, my 3 also has to have an x. So I'm going to combine those two things to make 3x. Then I'm just going to rewrite this extra plus 3 from this 3 right here, because I didn't do anything with that, and then I'm going to rewrite the negative 18. Once I get to this step, now I'm like in the solve step, and it does look pretty familiar. It looks more like a two-step equation, so I'm going to treat it like a two-step equation and draw a line down the middle of the equal sign so that I remember what I do to one side, I do to the other side. And now I'm going to solve. So to solve it, I need to get rid of both of the 3's. The 3 I'm going to get rid of first is the plus 3 because of that backwards PEMDAS that we talked about in the last video. So we're going to get rid of this plus 3. The way we get rid of it is by doing the opposite of adding, which means we're going to subtract 3 from each side. The 3's on the left side cancel each other out, and I'm just left with 3x. And then we've got negative 18 minus 3 on the right side, which gives me negative 21. Now it's a one-step equation. We want to get rid of the 3 that's next to the x. The 3 that's right next to the x is multiplying the x. So to get rid of it, we do the opposite of multiplying, which means we're going to divide by 3. And then the 3's on the left side cancel each other out. We're just left with x. And then on the right side, we've got negative 21 divided by 3, which gives me negative 7. And my answer is x equals negative 7. All right. So now let's look at another example. In this example, we have 7, parenthesis x plus 2, close parenthesis, minus 7x equals negative 3. So here's where we start using that distributive property. I see a set of parentheses. The first thing I'm going to do is distribute. And when we distribute, we take the number that's on the outside of the parentheses and multiply it by both numbers on the inside. You don't have to use those arrows that I just drew, but that's just an easy way to remember, oh, I have to multiply it by both of those things. So we're going to do 7 times x, which is just 7x. And then we do 7 times 2, which gives us 14. And now we're going to just rewrite the rest of the equation because I haven't done anything with that yet. Okay, so we just use this distributive property. Now the next step is to combine like terms. And the like terms are either the things with the x's or without the x's. So in this case, we have this 7x and then this negative 7x right here. I'm going to underline them the same way just so we can recognize they are like terms. We have to combine them. Okay, so when we combine them, I've got a 7x minus 7x. That's the same thing as saying 7 minus 7 and then tacking on an x to it. Well, 7 minus 7 is 0, right? So we could write 0x, but 0 times anything is just 0. So these actually cancel each other out, and we're just going to cross them out, which means I'm just left with 14 on the left side, and then on the right side is that negative 3 still. Now, this is where it gets a little bit complicated. Does 14 equal negative 3? No, that doesn't make sense. 14 doesn't equal negative 3. 14 equals 14. So what that means is when the x's cancel out and what we're left over with doesn't make sense, that means that we've got no solutions. So let me give you another example. If the x's canceled out, but I was left with something that did make sense, so if it was like negative 3 equals negative 3, then my answer would be all real numbers. So those are your two special cases. All right, let's go through another example. So in this example, we have 5, parenthesis x plus 2, minus 3, parenthesis 2x plus 7 equals 12. Okay, so if you remember, let me just scroll up a little bit. The first step is to use the distributive property. So we want to get rid of the parentheses. We're going to distribute the 5 into this set of parentheses because it's right in front of this set of parentheses. Then we're going to distribute the 3 into this set of parentheses. All right, so let's start with the 5 first. 5 times x is just 5x. Then we've got 5 times 2, which gives me 10. Now, when we distribute the 3, we're not going to just distribute 3. We're going to distribute negative 3. The reason why we distribute negative 3 is because that 3 is negative. So negative 3 times 2x gives me negative 6x. And then negative 3 times 7 gives me negative 21. And that equals 12. All right. Now the next step is to combine like terms. So we've got a 5x and a negative 6x. Those both have x's. They're considered like terms. But now we also have a 10 and a negative 21. Those both don't have x's, and so they're also considered like terms. Remember, when we're combining like terms, we're only combining like terms on the same side of the equal sign. So the 12 is also a like term with the 12 and the negative 21, but that doesn't count because it's on the other side of the equal sign. Okay, so now when we combine like terms, we're going to start with the x's. 5x minus 6x gives me a negative 1x. And then we've got 10 minus 21, which gives me negative 11? Yep, okay, and then that is equal to 12. Okay, cool. So now it looks like a two-step equation, which means we can treat it like a two-step equation. We're going to draw the line down the middle of the equal sign, and then we're going to get rid of the negative 1 and the negative 11. We get rid of the negative 11 first because it's subtracting from the x, and we use that backwards, PEMDAS. And so to get rid of the minus 11, we do the opposite of subtracting, which means we're going to add 11 to each side. And then the 11s on the left side cancel out. We're just left with negative 1x. And then 12 plus 11 gives me 23 on the right side. Okay, now we want to get rid of the negative 1. Right now the negative 1 is multiplying the x. So to get rid of it, we do the opposite, which means we divide by negative 1. We have to divide by negative 1 and not just 1 because we want to get rid of the negative as well. So these negative 1s cancel out on the left side. We're just left with x, and then we've got 23 divided by negative 1 on the right side, which gives me negative 23. And that is my answer. All right, let's just go through one more example. This example is negative 4, 2x minus 6 equals 3, plus 1. Oh, sorry guys, minus 1. All right, first step, distribute. So we're going to distribute the negative 4 and then the 3. I'm going to start with the negative 4. So we've got negative 4 times 2x, which should give me negative 8x. And then negative 4 times negative 6. Two negatives cancel each other out and become a positive. So it's going to be plus 24 equals, now we multiply or distribute the 3. So 3 times x is 3x. Then 3 times 1 gives me 3. And then we have this extra -1 we're going to tack on because we haven't done anything with that yet. The next step is to combine like terms. Now, the only like terms that I see that are on the same side are on the right side, and that's the 3 and the -1. Everything else are on opposite sides of each other, so like the -8x and the 3x, even though those are like terms, because they're on other opposite sides of the equal sign, we can't combine them yet. So I'm going to combine the 3 and the -1, and I'm just going to rewrite the other chunks first. And then 3 minus 1 gives me 2, so I'm just going to write plus 2. This is a little bit of a different one because you have x's on both sides. So we're still going to treat it like we're going to solve this equation. It's more than a two-step equation in this case, but it's still solvable. So what we want to do is actually get the x's on the same side. When you want to get x's on the same side, you have to add or subtract. You're going to keep for example, in this case, let's say I want to move the 3x over to the right side. I am going to subtract 3x to the right side. The reason I'm choosing to subtract the 3x to the right side is because 3x is positive on, yes, 3x is positive on the right, so to get rid of it, we have to make it negative. But I have to move the 3 and the x together. When I'm trying to move a number and a letter together, I have to add or subtract. I'm not multiplying or dividing. So we subtract the 3x from both sides. We've got -8x minus 3x on the left side, which gives me -11x. And then this plus 24 hasn't moved, hasn't changed. So I'm just going to rewrite it. And then these 3x's on the right side cancel each other out, which means I'm just left with 2. Now it looks way more like a two-step equation, which means that I can solve it like a two-step equation. I've got to get rid of the -11. I've got to get rid of the 24. I'm going to get rid of the 24 first because I have to add or subtract first and then multiply or divide. So it's plus 24 right now. To get rid of it, we do the opposite, which means I'm going to do minus 24 on each side. And the 24s cancel each other out on the left side. I'm just left with -11x. And then 2 minus 24 gives me -22. My pen. Okay. And then now the next step is to get rid of the -11. Right now the -11 is multiplying the x. So to get rid of it, we're going to divide by -11 on each side. Make the line a little bit longer. The -11s cancel each other out on the left side. We're just left with x, and then -22 divided by -11 gives me 2. My final answer is x equals 2. And there we have it.